what I'm going to show you here is a strong user case for when we did the Evoke. Now the Evoke's been out on the road quite a while now, but it tells a really good story how virtual reality, because I've been in this quite a while now, I think 2006 when we started to do this sort of thing. So it's not all new, it's been around for a long time. But the Evoke story, I'll take you through how we engineered the particular vehicle in a certain way. We'll tell you how the user case grew within Jaguar Land Rover and also how it's being used in the industrial world. And then hopefully that will bridge over into the content that was just shown in how we get more creative in how we design our vehicles. So, I don't know how many people, has many people got an Evoke? Nobody? On the left-hand side, let me just point at this. This was a show car that we put into a show a long time ago. It was called the LRX. And there was quite a hype about it because of the angle of the roof and the quite radical design. But not like a lot of car companies will put a car into a show and say, this is the art of the possible. Wouldn't it be great if we could produce this? We decided we were going to produce it. And the car on the right, which is now the Evoke, is within millimeters of that original style and that original design. And the way we did it was using VR. So a little bit of history about Jaguar Land Rover. From the Land Rover point of view, we have a DNA. And the DNA is that we are brilliant off-road, we can wade through water, and we also have a command drive feel, which will come up in a second. So all this sort of thing had to be built into the vehicle, whilst we also looked at this radical design of sloping the roof. So, the design promise, that's the LRX. We wanted to deliver it, so in order to deliver it, we had to match certain targets. When you sit in, has anybody got a Range Rover? Any Land Rover products whatsoever? I'm doing well here. Jaguars? No. When you sit inside the car, if you've ever driven one, you feel a little bit higher up on the road so that you're looking sort of around, you have a good safety aspect. So part of the DNA is to have good head clearance and you can see over the bonnet. So the new design sent some challenges because we were losing the head clearance for the people inside the car, but also we were looking down over the road. We were not getting the same sort of lines we get with the DNA of a Range Rover or Land Rover product. So this was failing what we class as our bread and butter, basically. So the head clearance in the back. Now our two designers on Evoke are 6'3" and 6'2". They had to sit in the back of this car. That was the challenge. So we didn't take the standard model, which is about 6 foot for a person in the back. We took it as a 6'2", 6'3" person. We didn't get the head clearance if we were standard package. Front or rear, or we couldn't get the command drive feel over the bonnet. Now when I mention package, it means how the car feels around you. So if I'm sitting in the driver's seat like this, it's out where everything is around you and how you're seeing outside the car, looking over the bonnet and looking over the rails and through the pillars. That's the command drive feel. So we thought, well, obviously you just push the people down. And that gives you the head clearance. That's easy enough. But no, because then you lose the command drive position. Because I've gone from this to this. And everything's here now, and I can't see over the road. We're doing this, and we're doing all of this without any physical properties at the moment. So looking over the bonnet wouldn't look right. So what next? Let's push the whole car down. Solves the problem. We could sit in the same package as a Freelander, say, but we pushed it closer to the road. But what that does, as I said about the DNA, means that we can't go off-road. So we haven't got the ground clearance. And part of our selling points is that we can go off-road better than everybody else. So that wasn't going to work. So the answer was, take everything below the seat and everything down to the floor and just condense them. Now, that takes a challenge because if anybody did have a Range Rover or Land Rover, there's an awful lot of technology runs through that particular space. And the only way to work with that particular space was to get your head inside it. what we delivered by doing it was says it factor there. The ground is closer to the ground than a Freelander, but you've got 27 mil more clearance. Don't ask me to quantify it, but it does. So in order to do that, we'll get onto the VR point. Up in the corner is the virtual reality cave that I installed it in Jaguar Landrover in 2008. It gave us the ability to start cutting sections through that car and working in the virtual world, putting your head wherever you wanted in that car. What that gave our engineers was the ability to maximize that space. There are standards. Anybody that's in the car industry or anything that makes something, there are standards around everything you do. In the car industry, there are lots of standards running down this length related to the exhaust, the clearance around the exhaust, how much space you have to have between different parts. You did that traditionally by cutting sections in 2D and working out what those clearances met. In 3D, the engineer was able to be more creative with the space, put things closer together, maybe redesign certain areas to make them flow easier through that particular space. So we optimized the underfloor package. But there's a knock-on effect. You can't just optimize the underfloor package without taking everything else into consideration. Here, we cut sections through the actual engine area and maximized everything going around in that particular space. Whilst we were doing this, we got the manufacturing teams, the service teams in, all to dive their heads in this particular area. Something that had not been done before because it's sort of handed over at certain points in traditionally. What we did is we got manufacturing to understand if they could build it with the challenges ahead, and service if they were able to service if it ever went in for service. So combining these elements meant that we were maximizing that virtual experience, and these people were working together in order to optimize this particular space. Underfloor, as I said, there is an awful lot of stuff goes on underneath that vehicle. And there's an awful lot of clearances that need to be done, an awful lot of protection for particular things with different shields and everything. So we had to maximize that by virtual reality. Now, I think this is the great bit of animation. It took me ages to program this. Took a while, but I got there. And the reason I'm showing you that is this particular area here is the fuel tank. This is what drove how we could condense that package under that vehicle. So the fuel tank is, you're basically in the second row, you're sitting above the fuel tank. So you've got the 6'2", 6'3" person sitting on that fuel tank with that sloping roof. So if you're not condensing everything below, your head's going to be here. So you had to maximize that particular area to this float valve. Now the float valve is because we go off-road, means that has to stay, you can't let the fuel go into that because it cuts the fuel off. So that particular point was the driving point for condensing everything around that to give us that relationship at the back. So we got a 6'2", 6'3" person in the back, but then we didn't stop there. We started to look at how we use virtual reality to use for storage. So have we got any golfers in here? Tough crowd, this, isn't it? The golfers, I don't suppose you've got ping golf clubs, but the golf club relates to the driver. Now the driver, if you are a golfer, you usually have to take the driver out the bag for this size vehicle and then put it in afterwards. We maximised the space in here so that you didn't take the driver out, you just chuck your bag in. And anybody who plays golf, you know that's good because you don't have to get all your dirty clubs, take it out and mess about with them. So these were the facts that came out of it. Once we'd done all that work in virtual reality, we delivered this. So we had more headroom than the Range Rover Sport. Now, if you look at the vehicle, you think, that don't look right. But you have more headroom because of the maximised stuff underneath. That was a quick whirlwind through, but we use that now on a daily basis for all our vehicles. We do regular checks within the virtual world. We have a whole series of builds before we get to anything physical. And it was the learning we took from the Evoke that makes us maximise our vehicles and also deliver the design intent from our designers. It gives the creativity back. It was something that we mentioned earlier at the Immerse UK bit that I did as a panel. The creativity is what VR allows engineering designers to do. It allows them to break their imagination, put it out there, because you're getting the tools that are letting you go that little bit further. In physical world, you are restricted by physical. So if you can start applying the imagination back into the design process, you start to get things that are really exciting people in the product. So what's the future hold? Well, this is not where I'm going to tell you what we're going to build or anything like that. This is going to tell you a little bit about where we're going with virtual reality. Closer to reality, closer to design was what I've just talked about. Closer to reality is what I've been trying to do with Warwick University, and will be part of the Immerse UK thing when that launches in November the 2nd at the Innovate UK. It's to try and drive more commonality between the senses. So we talked about visuals, we talked about sound in different talks that have been going on. But it's about the 7 senses combining and how we maximize that interaction with those 7 senses to get you to a point where you are interfacing with AR, VR, but in a purely natural way. But the visuals, as they are very good at the moment, and they're probably the most developed of the senses, still have to go that step further. Now this is part of our Gaiden track. But this is a model. This is a scanned model, surfaced, and then globally illuminated. It is great to actually, you go down that one bit of road, and it took a lot of work to get that piece to look as realistic as it could. But then you're let down by the hardware because you're wearing either an Oculus or a Vive, and there's resolution issues and things like that. But then we also added in the sound, and we linked into smell. So part of the way down there, you get the smell of cut grass through the car, and then we did certain experiments to see how people react in those cross senses. So it's understanding how virtual reality can get us nearer to the real. Another challenge may have been mentioned by certain speakers is a digital twin. So not only do you want to immerse your senses to give you that design feel, we also want to make a digital twin of our manufacturing facilities. So we can have a virtual factory, a physical factory. If you alter one in the physical factory, it alters the virtual, and vice versa. So the aim we get to really understand how you maximize the physical with the virtual, and I say vice versa. Increase productivity, but also increase safety and things like that, because you're doing it in a safe environment and transferring it to the physical environment and putting it back into it. This is a comment that I was talking to a guy from our strategy guys, and we were just throwing things out there. And it is all about that one statement. It is about getting the product closer to the customer. And what I mean by that is if we can get the engineers, designers of a car company or any company that's actually making something to actually get inside the head of the customer, not just by talking to them, by experiencing what they are going to experience when they pick that product up. It means we're getting the product closer to the customer. We're understanding what they want out of the car or what they want out of any product, and we're putting it there. We are interacting differently. It's another thing that we need to understand, how the digital age is changing the perception of how vehicles are being driven, how people want to adapt that sort of flow of transportation around the country. It's a big challenge, autonomous driving, everything that's coming out at the moment. We have to understand where's the next big thing across the whole of industry. I like this picture, that's why it goes up in most of my presentations, because it tells you quite a story. You've got the touch of the ice, you've got the water dripping down, and you can imagine what that child is touching on side of that ice. And this is all about the sensory interaction that I meant. It's all about transferring that so that in the virtual world you're getting the same feelings, the same understanding of how that is. 2 slides, nearly done. On the left-hand side, has anybody experienced this? I mean, I don't mean going into a toilet and putting a Samsung Gear on, but this is something that was done by the Royal Theatre Company. And it's Alice in Wonderland, but it's set within a certain area. So they mocked up a bit of an old toilet. You sit on there, you experience Alice in Wonderland. It's really good how they've interpreted it and also put it into this particular area. It's to say that VR is transferable to anybody, anywhere, at any time. the experience is good, the layout is good, but there's one thing to remember about VR. It is transferable to everybody. I also put this in just because I get the mickey taken out of me, basically. But one thing you don't do is you don't let people film you when you're doing something and then put a soundtrack to it. Now, this is the mild soundtrack. I've had Barbie Girl by Aqua and everything playing through this. So that's gone around the company a few times. We'll cut that off, as you don't need enough of that. So I'm going to finish. I've talked you through how the Evoke was evolving. This is how the industry, the automotive industry, the air industry, are all developing virtually before they develop physically, and they're pushing the boundaries. But the key to the next few steps and how we want to go from an industry point of view is doing this. It's linking academia, engineering, to the entertainment, so the gaming and the entertainment industry. Now, we talked about Immerse UK. I don't know if everybody caught the little panel that we had, but Immerse UK is being formed, and it's going to be launched in the 2nd of November in Manchester. It's combining this element, bringing people together, having a one voice within this community that will help drive this commonality across these areas, but also help us design and engineer with the creativity and the imagination that we probably lost along the way due to automation of how we do processes. So the creative industry do it on a daily basis. Industry doesn't. So combining the two will bring industry back to the imagination that I think we had as a child. And that's me. Thank you.